and get to where you want to go faster. If you lose sight, you lose the fight. Failure will happen. It's what you do with it that defines who you are and who you will become. Not taking a risk is one of the biggest risks you can take.
Please join me in introducing Carey Lohrenz.
Here with you all. Thank you on this last day for really dragging yourself through the elevator challenge, the weather, everything else to be here. But what Dick just said, my name is Carey Lohrenz, call sign Vixen. Yeah, I know, not the most politically correct call sign you could ever hope for. I'll let that kind of rumble around in your heads for a second. But you get a call sign for either something really amazing that you did, maybe something not so notable, or it simply rhymes with your last name. But here's one thing to be sure of. The harder you push back against a call sign, the sooner the embroidered patches show up. So if you want to know how I got mine, meet me on the trade show floor later and I'll fill you in. It's not even a 2-beer story. But I was really fortunate to be one of the very first women to be assigned to fly on and off of aircraft carriers in the United States Navy. So I spent about 10 years as a Navy fighter pilot planning, executing, and debriefing really complex missions. In that time, though, however, I was really fortunate to be able to work with some of the world's most outstanding teammates and some that provided coaching opportunities as well. I was told that was myself on more than one occasion. But we had to really figure out, how do you get these extraordinary wins? How do you achieve success in these constantly changing and very challenging environments where oftentimes you're not being given enough information or even the wrong information, and you have really limited resources to get that job done. And you have to be able to achieve this success not with the team that you would have rather hand-picked, but with the team that you actually have at hand. So what I would like to do today is share some of those lessons learned, really from those high-performance lessons of Navy fighter pilots, as well as that journey from being a small-town Midwestern girl into the cockpit of a $50 million fighter aircraft. But right out of the gate, one of the questions that I want to answer, people always want to know, oh my gosh, what was it like flying at twice the speed of sound? Full disclosure, I was a psychology and social work major. So this is how airplanes work in my mind. So whether you're going to fly at twice the speed of sound or you're simply flying commercially, it all works the same. You're going to want to walk out to your airplane, take a look at it, make sure it's got 2 wings, right? Great place to start. Enough tires to get you down the runway in a reasonable fashion. Now, is there anybody here who is afraid to fly? Oh, look at you guys, kind of a judgy group. I'm surprised by that. Right away, you're like, who's scared? Who are the ones that are the scary cats, right? Okay, so it looks like kind of they're actually more in this section. But when you have to head back out to the airport, this is what you're gonna wanna look at. There's that center thing, that vertical stabilizer thingy, looks kind of like a shark fin. It has 2 wings on either side of that. Now, those are actually the things that make the houses get bigger or smaller. So that's where you want to pay attention to detail. Because if your co-pilot has just kind of woken up and is now on the whole Pokemon Go thing and they're not looking at that, take the next flight, right? Just a little word of caution there. But as long as all those pieces are there, you should be okay. Because this is where the magic is going to start happening. You're going to start rolling down that runway and the air is going to hit your wing or your wing foil, and it gets heavier on the top or the bottom. It doesn't matter which, really, because it's called Bernoullis Principle. And Bernoulli was Swiss. And the Swiss make some of the world's best chocolate, which is pretty magical. And that's kind of how airplanes hit twice the speed of sound. Anybody have any questions? No, you're like, oh, thank goodness, this is the level of science we're going to hit today. I know, it's going to be a break from the last few days. Well, one of the things that I want to share with you, though, right out of the gate, when we're working in these really volatile environments, is this idea that 80% is good enough. Now, not 80% compliance, or y'all are going to be at a completely different conference next year, probably in an orange jumpsuit, okay? But I want you to think all you need to have is 80% enough information, and then just go start taking action. Too often, especially when we're working in these fast-paced times, we think you have to have everything suitcase. You need the perfect plan, the perfect rollout, that, oh, R&D needs to be talking to marketing, everything needs to be perfect. It actually doesn't. 80% good enough, just start taking action. Now you're probably thinking, so why is there a picture of kids up there? Well, I own my own business, and I just got done being the president of an 800-member association, so not quite as big as yours, but, and I have 4 kids. So I have a lot of glass balls that I'm juggling at any one time, right? Trying not to drop the most important ones. But probably not my proudest parenting moment. Just about a year or so ago, my 100% not only went to 80%, but then went to 75%, in that was my Christmas card. Now, for those of you, I have 3 girls and a boy, okay? Now, for those of you who are parents who have tried to take a Christmas picture of your kids and you're like, just smile and we'll get this done faster, you realize this is a win. I mean, he's in the picture, great. That's good enough. What I didn't realize though is that last year I got so busy I actually wouldn't send out a Christmas card. So unless you're personal Facebook friends with me, that's the last time you've seen my son, and he has literally grown a foot since then. So I'm thinking this year is going to be his breakout year, right? We'll rediscover him again. But again, just remember, just keep going, moving, adapting, and adjusting. And at the end of the day, if you're feeling super overwhelmed, hopefully you at least have something really nice to come home to, right? Oh, listen, you guys like my dog better than my kids. Wow, tough crowd this morning. All right, well, what I'd like to do is take a second and welcome you into my office, into the cockpit of this $50 million fighter jet. Now, this is an environment that is not just mentally challenging, but it's physically challenging as well. And why is that? Most people don't realize that as Navy and Marine Corps fighter pilots, flying is actually only part of our job. Unfortunately, we have to have a real grown-up job just like you. So what does that mean? That means that as soon as we get to our squadrons, we are part and in whole responsible for running these squadrons that have 250 to 300 people with assets valued at right around $1 billion. So I may start off as an educational services officer where I'm responsible for training all of our sailors and Marines. And then maybe 3 or 6 months later, I slide over and now I'm an assistant maintenance officer. Just as I get the hang of that, I'm starting to feel a little comfortable in that role. Now I get to swap and maybe I'm running the safety department. So we're always being thrown on our heels, right? We're always being caught off guard and having to constantly be learning. At the same time, we're responsible for all that pilot stuff. So I go from maybe, running the admin department to literally go into a different room where I plan my mission. I go into yet another room where I brief my team, i.e. my wingmen, and then I go into yet another space where I pull on about 35 pounds of flight gear. I go up to the flight deck, get in my airplane, and I am launched off the front end of that aircraft carrier, going from 0 to over 200 miles an hour in just under 2 seconds flat. And within a couple of minutes, I'm usually going about 450 to 500 miles an hour, all the while leading 2, 4, 6, 8, sometimes 20 wingmen safely to the target, and then back to the aircraft carrier again. Now, why is that mentally challenging? Well, we've got a lot going on there, probably similar to you. More often than not, we're feeling very task overloaded. In my cockpit alone, I have about 350 switches and dials. And I have 3 different radios that people are talking to me on 3 different frequencies at the same time. So I'm having to very quickly synthesize all of that information while I'm operating in this 3-dimensional battlefield in space, where clearly we are trying not to hit each other, right? or the ground or anything attached to the ground while we're processing this conflicting information. Now that might seem pretty easy, or like, okay, so you're flying an airplane, don't hit each other, no kidding. But there's a very physical element to this as well. So for example, right now we're all sitting here and we're experiencing 1G, or 1 times the force of gravity. So if you weigh what I do, which on a good day would be about 100, right, so it's kind of been a tough summer. Maybe some of you have had that as well. So let's say for math's sake and my vanity, today we all weigh 200 pounds. So at 200 pounds and 1G, you should still weigh 200 pounds. That's how math works. But when I'm in my airplane and I pull back on that stick, I can experience up to 8 times the force of gravity, which means my body goes from feeling like it weighs 200 pounds-ish to instantly weighing 1,600 pounds. Now that is like trying to think and fly and talk and make decisions with an elephant sitting in your lap, crushing you. At the same time, all of the blood is pulling from your brain and it's settling in your lower body cavity. And there's so much pressure on your vascular system, it feels like your toenails are gonna blow off, which I'm sorry for those of you who are like mid-coffee sip, it's bad post-breakfast conversation, I know. But oftentimes people are like, oh my gosh, you're a fighter pilot, that's so cool, that's so glamorous. And I'm like, I know, I get to fly a really hot airplane, right? You get a good leather jacket out of the deal, and it feels like your toenails are gonna blow off on a daily basis. So not really in the job description. But as long as I haven't passed out, because there's no blood left in my brain, now I get to come back and land on the aircraft carrier. Now, the aircraft carrier was that little boat that was in the lower right-hand corner of that picture, that if you were sitting in the back, it probably looked like it was about the size of a postage stamp. Unfortunately, if you can put that back up there, we'll take a look at that so you in the back can see your postage stamp. There it is. Unfortunately for us, at 3,000 feet, that's about how big it looks as well. And that darn thing is always running in the worst weather. The foggier, the worse it can be, the better it is for the ship, because it just wants to hide, right, for security purposes. But every landing for us is like a controlled car crash. So as you can imagine, that's why we get paid the big bucks, right? Yeah. So you're imagining that right now. I can tell you, like, really? Wow. Anybody in here spent any time in the military? Maybe a couple of you? Yeah? Okay, so I'm gonna pick on you, front row-ish. Where did you serve? Oh, in the Army. Thank you for your service. He did not make good money. I'm just telling you. So congratulations on your transition, unless you're still active. That way? No, we didn't make a lot of money either. So we didn't do it for the money, we did it for the fun and the service, right? I mean, car crashes, who doesn't want to do that every day? Because every landing, when we're coming aboard the ship, we're going at about 165 miles an hour, crossing the back end of that ship. And I touched down and I slammed to a full stop in under 1 second. That deceleration force alone is enough to blow any other airplane in the military's inventory into little tiny Lego pieces, except for the couple that can land on the aircraft carrier. Now, as much as I would like to think that I have the best job on the ship and the most important job, because if any of you know any fighter pilots, they tend to think the world revolves around them, right? Am I right? But it actually takes an entire high-performing team to do this job. We cannot do this job by ourselves. So what I would like to do is share with you a short video that shows what this looks like, not only on the flight deck of that aircraft carrier, but then airborne, fighting another airplane, and then coming back and landing on the aircraft carrier. So sit back, relax, and let's go take a short flight off the aircraft carrier.
again? That's 370. Sure what? Oh, yeah.
So what do you think? It looks just like the movies, right? It's a little different than that, but what did you see maybe, or what did you hear in that video? A lot of heavy breathing, right? A lot of stress. There's a lot going on in this environment. Every aircraft carrier has about 5,000 people on board this ship. And yet, the top of that flight deck is known as the most dangerous industrial work site in the world. And we have exceptional operational challenges here. Every 9 months or so, almost 50% of this population turns over. So if you extrapolate that, what does that mean? That means every 18 months, you have an entirely new crew trying to get the job done in the most dangerous industrial work site. That's an exceptional challenge. And you add on top of that, does anybody know what the average age is on an aircraft carrier? 22, 23. It's 19 to 19 and a half years old. Yeah, if that doesn't suck the air out of your lungs today, I got nothing. Right? Imagine you have to go back and next Monday, the average age of everybody you work with is 19 to 19 and a half years old. That would be a leadership challenge for sure. So how do we do this? Well, with great leadership, we're able to do that because we have an extraordinary sense of purpose. Everybody on this ship with good leadership should know that the most important thing is simply the safe launching and recovering of airplanes. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That's it. Now, do we have a lot more things going on? Of course we do. We are overtasked, we're overcommitted, just like you are. But at the end of the day, we have to figure out what the most important thing is that we should be doing. And the only way we can do that is if we know what our purpose is. That is going to be one of your biggest leadership challenges, both on a leading yourself perspective and from a team perspective, no matter what space you're working in right now. It's figuring out what is the most important work that you need to be doing. The folks who are really effective at this are the ones that I call catalysts. They're the people that you can bring from one organization and even drop them into a completely different organization. But when they understand what the vision is and what the purpose is, they're able to get people aligned very, very quickly so that you get to where you want to go faster. In my world, obviously, speed is life because it gives us options. The faster we go, we can either engage really quickly, we can run away, we can turn back in, but it gives us options. And that means we have more resources available as well. So think about that. How do we do this? Well, I think that there are these three fundamental blocks to this. When you understand what your purpose is, and then you can focus in on that work that matters most and start executing with discipline, i.e. not getting pulled off doing that really important work, that is what will allow you to move that performance needle faster than almost anything else you could implement. One of the things that we used to always say every time we would walk out to our airplanes was that if you lose sight, you lose the fight. If you lose sight of the most important work that you should be doing, you are guaranteed to lose the fight. Think back to that video. So he's surrounded by 350 switches and dials, radios going off, radar, all these beeps and whistles. And yet, how much attention did he pay looking down? None, right? Because that wasn't the most important thing at that given time. Everything that mattered was up and out, not heads down, not, no, I got this. I can multitask, I'm listening. Yeah, no, I'm not. Right, I can't do that. Because we can only at best, even NASA research shows us that fighter pilots and astronauts are only able to focus on 5 things plus or minus 2. Now that doesn't give us a lot to work with. When you already think just flying it itself involves airspeed, altitude, turns, communication, yaw, we're already overtasked. So we need to understand what the most important work is. I always tell people, pick 3 things. Grab a Sharpie marker and a Post-it note, write your 3 most important things to do that day, and put it on the back of your phone, put it on your laptop, put it on your dashboard, put it wherever you are going to see it, so that you can very intentionally throughout the day only say yes to those things that help you achieve getting done those 3 most important things. Otherwise, what happens? We get to the end of the day, we're overwhelmed, we're exhausted, we're frustrated, and we think, holy mackerel, what did I even get done today? And we wake up the next morning and here's our inbox, right? And we're like, God, and right back on the hamster wheel we go. So understand what matters most for you and your organization. Write those 3 things down and then start going hard after those 3 things, very intentionally. Now, back to my story for a second. You already heard I was a proud Wisconsin graduate. Yeah, woo, like 3 people in here. Fantastic. All right, I'll share the wonderful with you. But this will become a little more relevant in just a couple of minutes, I promise you. There are only 3 ways you can become a Navy fighter pilot. You either go to the Naval Academy and earn a flying slot, you go through an ROTC program, or you do what I did, where you're a regular college graduate, you know, whether that's aerospace engineer, parks and rec, who knows, but you take a whole battery of tests and then go to aviation officer candidate school. And that's what I did. I was always drawn towards the Navy because I loved its focus on mission before self. So I show up the first day to about 5 of these lovely young gentlemen hovering over my face. And inside of about the first 2 minutes, I'm literally outside doing mountain climbers in somebody else's pile of vomit as my mattress, clothes, and everything else end up landing right next to me. And I'm like, well, this is not what I thought was gonna happen on my day 1 dream journey, right? What's going on here? But very quickly, we met our drill instructor. And what we found out was that he was going to be retiring as soon as our class graduated. So good for him. However, what we also found out was that he had never let a female who started with his class graduate with his class because he didn't believe that women should be in the military. So you could say that he and I had a bit of a philosophical difference, right? But it didn't really much matter what I thought because he was the boss of me. So he was clearly going to be the barrier between me and achieving my dream. And this is a very arduous program, as you can imagine, because their goal is to exert enormous amount of pressure on you on a minute-by-minute, day-to-day basis. Because what they want to discover are who are those people in changing and challenging environments will still be able to make good decisions. But more importantly, who will be able to make a good decision that's in the best interest of the team when it now becomes clear that it's no longer in their personal best interest, because that's a lot harder to do. So they gave us a lot of times enough information that we would have to start getting going or taking action, or they would overwhelm us with information that was clearly wrong and we didn't even know what success was supposed to look like, but they wanted to see if we would still start taking action. Because what they knew to be true is that to stay relevant, i.e. alive, in the long term, was that only those people who are able to take bold and aggressive leadership steps in the face of the unknown with no guarantee of success are the ones who actually stay alive. Now, I don't want you to think that this was all doom and gloom and that it was terrible. It was very interesting training. They had a lot of interesting techniques. You know, how to learn to pay attention to detail by marching and throwing these rifles around, trying not to hit each other. And, hey, you know, I'm from Wisconsin and it was February and we got to spend a lot of time in the pool. So that was an unexpected surprise. Until we got a little further along in the program where we entered the phase that they called advanced water survival. And they call it advanced water survival because if they called it what it really was, which is we are going to drown you on a daily basis, nobody would ever sign up for this program. An example of this, one of our training evolutions, they had us put all of our flight gear on, torso harness, boots, gloves, helmet, and then they strapped a parachute to our backside. And they dropped us in the water and started dragging us at a very high rate of speed. Now, for those of you who have been dragged through the water with a parachute strapped to your butt, you'll know that what happens is you get all tangled up and it drags you right to the bottom of the ocean floor. So you're bouncing along, you're getting scratched, all this stuff, and you have gallons of salty water pummeling your sinuses, which feels like hot poker sliding into your brain. It's a very suboptimal situation to make a good decision in. But the goal is to get disentangled from all of this stuff, surface, swim over to a raft, and then they drop a rescue swimmer in to get you. Now, one of my classmates was not doing well in this whole evolution to the extent that he wasn't actually surfacing. So they had to drop this rescue swimmer in early to get him. And as they're winching him up into the helicopter, it is clear he is broken. Like, not just deadly as catch broken, where if you watch that at all, especially during Ophelia season, and they're like, oh, it's so cold, right? I hate Ophelia season. Oh no, it's way past that. He gets up to this helicopter and he is scratching and clawing and fighting his way to get out of the helicopter. Which would mean, where would he end up? Back in the water, right? That's not a good thing. The way the kind of gravity works in this situation, if you're at 300 feet in a helicopter and you fall out, that is like hitting the cement ground. Not good. So the rescue swimmer, who has clearly seen this before, reaches into his helmet bag and pulls out a marshmallow and shoves a marshmallow in his mouth. Oh, a couple of fellow foodies. It's because what happens when you have salty water in your mouth and you shove a marshmallow in your mouth? All right, y'all need to back away from your computers and hop over on YouTube occasionally, okay? I cannot be the only one who knows this information. It gets hot and it expands. So your brain, which is in full-on lizard brain mode, i.e. survival mode, suddenly goes, oh, well, there's a party in my mouth. Right? Oh, no, I didn't mean to, oh, sorry, took a swing at you, right? No, I'm not gonna quit, I'm not gonna quit. So one of my takeaways from this episode